Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Bleav in Iowa podcast. There's no Brady today, so it was just me, Logan Blackman, and former Iowa Hawkeye tight end Dominique Dafney, and we are here to talk about another rivalry game. We had our early one earlier. We had one earlier in the season against Iowa State. Lost that trophy game. We got another chance to get a trophy this coming week, going to Wisconsin. Dom, what are your initial thoughts on this game against Wisconsin?
Kind of like we talked a little bit ago you know, the fact that this is an away game doesn't doesn't sit well because I've played at Wisconsin and this game kicking off at 6 p.m. I understand that that stadium gets rocking and the way we talk about Kinnick is the way they talk about what is it, Camp Randall.
Yeah.
So especially when they get to the fourth quarter and it's rocking and they hit the jump around like that's their Energizer bunny. So they play really well at home, and the fact that we're coming off a bye week and coming off a tough loss and coming off a week where our quarterback got injured, it's kind of a game that's up in the air for me at least emotionally. So I'll definitely be looking at this one tight, seeing how we come out in the first and second quarter, and that's gonna let me know what Iowa team is coming out this week. But it's not really feeling the best.
Yeah, there's that little bit of me that's like I'm stuck in really two minds here about this game because it's like on one hand, Wisconsin's not very good. They're just on paper not very good. They've lost a few games this year. Obviously, a couple of them were to ranked teams in Alabama and Michigan and stuff like that. But the game against Maryland, they looked really rough in there. But all of that being said, that stuff kind of gets pushed to the side in a rivalry game, especially in a game like Iowa Wisconsin, where in years past where we've talked about like these two teams are very similar to one another. Obviously, Wisconsin's trying to run a more a spread look now. Their quarterbacks are a little bit of a question mark right now with Billy Edwards still being hurt, and Iowa beat the crap out of them last year, so you want to carry that to this year. But like you just talked about, like the loss to Indiana is going to weigh heavy. The Mark Gronowski question marks on the injury because Kirk was very, I don't really know what like non-committal in regards to what the quarterback situation is going to look like because he was like Gronowski was cleared, but we could see Gronowski play, we could see Hank Brown play, we could see Hecklinski play in this game because he was even listed on the depth chart this week. So it's just a weird feeling where like, oh, we should win this game because it's Wisconsin. Iowa's better than Wisconsin, but it's a rivalry game. Question marks over quarterback loss, coming off a big loss in a bye week. There's a lot of scariness, I guess you could say, despite how our views on Wisconsin are.
Yeah, and it's weird to have KF kind of speak in that manner where it's Thursday now, coming up on Friday, and we still don't know who's going to play quarterback. Like that's never a great feeling when you have potentially three starting quarterbacks and you're going to Wisconsin in a loud environment and it's going to be a physical game regardless of how good Wisconsin is, how good Iowa is. It's a rivalry game. We're fighting for a trophy, and that means something to these two teams. They have a long history, and like you said, it's kind of a mirror match when you look at the two teams. So this will be who's the toughest team that'll come out victorious. So when we have to think of the fact that we don't even know who our starting quarterback's going to be, it kind of leaves a weird feeling, and me personally, I kind of wish we would have maybe sat Gronowski out one more week because knowing that we have a bit of a gauntlet coming up, I would have loved to see him get back to even 100, 110%. And so we could be ready when we have Penn State at home and Oregon at home because we're going to need him to be at his best, playing at his best the way he looked in that Indiana game. That's the Mark Gronowski we're going to need. So when I seen that he was still on the depth chart listed as one, I had hopes to say that they seen enough in him in practice and in his recoveries coming back from the knee, from tweaking his knee a little bit. That gave me hopes that he was recovering better than obviously most of us would see. Well, obviously, we're not there every day. We're not in the training room with them. So that gave me hope. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I wish we can give him an extra week or two to let him really get back because, he's going to want to make plays with his legs. Like that's his game. So don't want to see him go out there trying to be a hero and then, just he not being 100%. That's not what you want to see because we understand what he could do with his legs as well as what he's kind of been growing and trying to accomplish with his arm and gain confidence and gain a rhythm the week in, week out. So when I seen that, it kind of worried me a little bit, but it's like I said, it's just not a great feeling all around with the away game, the quarterback questions, and And the fact that we kind of have this gauntlet coming up, kind of wanted to see your team get back to 100%. So this is going to be a game where I feel like we're going to have to lean on our other guys a little bit and have them play to their 100%, especially knowing that we don't know who's going to be at the helm.
And it's also got a couple other injuries in there. Jazz Patterson wasn't listed on the depth chart, but I am excited to see if Nathan McNeil gets a little run and things. We've talked about him before on this show before, like after the UMass game when he came in extra time, or the end of the, not extra time, but like the garbage time, I guess you could say, at the end of the game. He looked really good there. There's no Jaden Harrell as well in the depth chart as well. Montgomery's in as a starter at middle linebacker right now. So there's some question marks around the injury, but that quarterback thing just weighs so heavily. And like you said, that looking to the future, looking at Penn State and Oregon coming up, it's like you really want Gronowski to be in those games. And do you think there's, like, you've been in the locker room before at Iowa and you know how Kirk operates and all that stuff. What do you think, like, the feel is in the locker room around Gronowski? Because Kirk's not really been one to, if someone's hurt, like if you look at like Petrus a few years ago where they put Alex Padilla in at quarterback, or when you look at Jake Rudock, they put CJ Beathard in, like the little injuries. Like this is a knee injury for a mobile quarterback in Gronowski. Is there like a thought process where we want him to play, but we realistically, it's more likely to see Hank Brown or Heglinski play? Do you think he's confident in those guys going in there, or do you think he wants Gronowski to play rather than resting him and then risk losing a game, especially, like you said, being a massive rivalry game against Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think if I can think back to how it was, I know he really like has a lot of respect for their starting quarterback and how they feel, and like physically, mentally, he puts a lot of responsibility on them to tell me, like, be honest with me. Do you feel good? Like, are you ready to go? Or are you not ready to go? So he's going to trust his guy. So if Mark Gronowski says he's ready to go, I feel like he's going to trust that he's going to be telling him the truth. Like, yeah, he's not going to try to play hero ball and risk injury. And I don't think KF would want him to do that either. He would also be tapping into the strength staff and to the training room, and to make sure, like, what Mark Gronowski is telling me is the truth. Like, make sure he's telling me that if he feels at 80%, you guys agree. If he tells me he's at 100%, would you guys agree? He's not going to put his quarterback out there and he doesn't know 100% if he's telling him the truth, or 100% if he's healthy, or that he wouldn't put him into a bad position. So I feel like, in my mind, the locker room is probably, as an athlete, you're good. You're, as a teammate, you're going to be asking Mark, like, you good, bro? Like, you playing this week? How do you feel? How's the knee? How's the recovery coming? But also knowing that we have bigger things on the table and that he might not be at 100%, you're going to be providing confidence for the quarterback 2 and 3, when they're in practice. Hey, you had a really nice day today. You made a couple throws that opened my eye, just kind of lifting them up as well, knowing that they could be potentially playing too, and they could be potentially starting this game. So there's going to be a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, because, again, it's only a Thursday, and I know usually they have an off day on Thursday, and then Friday we got Fast Friday practice. So definitely going to be a lot of looking around to kind of see who's starting, but there's going to be a lot of, hey, if you're going this week, let's go. Like, we're ready for you. We're riding with you. So it's going to have to feel it like that, but still, we're not going to figure that out until, I feel like, Friday afternoon.
Yeah, and there's also a little bit of fear in there as well from, like, a outsider's perspective of Gronowski hurt his knee back in South Dakota State. He had the ACL tear sophomore year. I guess because it was a weird, the FCS did that weird spring season and they went straight into the fall right afterwards, and he was coming off a torn ACL and he didn't play his sophomore year or redshirt freshman. I don't remember what they exactly called it, but there's that little fear in the back of my head anyways of where it's like, man, I don't want him to go out there and re-injure some or make it worse. They were talking about, like, he couldn't decelerate or anything against Indiana last week, but it was very promising on what he did last week in regards to throwing the football, throwing with confidence and stuff like that. And the run game, if he's not able to get going on the run game, then how is he able, like, I don't really know how I'm trying to word this, but he's trying to be like, can he trust him from the pocket? And I think last week we saw that we can look at him and go, hey, you don't need to make plays with your legs if you don't need to. We can trust you throwing from the pocket. You're looking confident, your shoulders looking good, and all that stuff. And the receivers looking really good as well. They're looking at him and Sam Phillips are building up really good chemistry. Dayton Howard, the big dude out wide, is looking really good at this point in the limited reps that he's gotten. It's a scary feeling, but you can't lose to Wisconsin. You got to get one trophy game. This is a good trophy game to get. Heartland Trophy. famous trophy, all that great stuff. And going to Wisconsin, we talked about before the show started about like the jump around stuff about their fourth quarter thing. You get to go into the fourth quarter up while they're doing their whole jump around thing and the jumping's not really there. It could get really exciting for us.
Yeah, and I think that feeling that you're talking about is just that nervous feeling of taking away a bit of Mark Gronowski's game, and the fact that we could trust him to throw the ball. He's shown that we could trust him to sit in the pocket, but we need him to have that escapability. We need him to have that. If that first second read isn't there, tuck it and run, because that's your game. We need him to be playing his game, and that feeling to kind of sit back and be like, okay, we'll change the game plan and just have you sit in the pocket. Like, that's not a great feeling, because we haven't asked him to do that, nor do we want him to do that. I wouldn't ask, obviously there's no comparisons here, but I wouldn't ask Cam Newton to not run. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that you do well. It's something that's a bit of your superpower, is that you're able to tuck and run and gain 7-8 yards a carry and really have defenses on their heels. Because if I can't blitz you because you read the blitz and you're able to escape the pocket and pick up 12 yards, I got to not send a blitz. I got to keep rushing 4 and drop everybody else back. But if I know you can't get out the pocket and I could just send the house every time, and you really have to sit in the pocket and trust your arm, and that's not really Iowa football. That's not really the Mark Gronowski football either. So it is kind of an uncertain feeling to sit there and ask and think and be confident to ask him to sit in the pocket for 30 times and just read and throw the ball without having the ability to read, react, and run. You know, that I think that's maybe, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that might be the feeling, because that's where my head's at too. We haven't asked him to do that and sit back and be Joe Burrow and throw the ball 40 times in the game in the pocket. Like, we need him to play Mark Gronowski football. And if he's not capable of doing that because his knee isn't up to 100%, you know, it's hard for me to ask him to go out there and beat Penn State and beat Oregon when you're not able to do the things that you do really well, to play Iowa football and to show us what you've been able to show us in this early, week 6 of the season, week 7 of the season. So I'm kind of right there with you, where it's not the best feeling. Yes, we can trust him, but, you know, I want to see Mark Gronowski in his full capabilities, which that is running the ball as well as throwing the ball.
And I think I love that you brought up Cam Newton with it, because it's Cam Newton, Josh Allen, Mark Gronowski, these bigger quarterbacks that want to run. Sometimes they need to get a little shot to get going, like kind of wakes them up a little bit, and then you get the best out of them. They take a hit, they get up all woo and get up and start making plays after that. Like, those bigger guys, they want to be physical. They want to run the ball. Like Mark Gronowski, in his time at Iowa, has not been afraid to run over people, or at least try to run over people. So you want to see that version of him. And yeah, it's the I don't, like you said perfectly, like, I don't want him to ask him to do something that he's not. Like, I want him to be him. I don't want him to try and make him, like, force him to be a pocket passer if he's not going to be able to run the ball with his knee and everything. And one final thing, we got Iowa's defense played really well last week against a very high-powered Indiana offense. They played run well. They got to Fernando Mendoza a lot. Wisconsin has the worst offense in the Big Ten statistically right now. Do you think there's a chance that we get like this? I know we got an interception. Lutmer got an interception last week, so I think that was the first interception from the defensive backfield this year. I could be wrong about that. I can't remember if a linebacker or someone got a pick or something.
Yeah, it was a linebacker in the Rutgers game.
Yeah. Because the corners, like Wisconsin, their identity is running the football, but they're trying to throw the ball a little more. There's more question marks on the quarterback. What are your expectations for Iowa's defense going into this game against Wisconsin?
I think that was one of my keys to victory for them, is control the line of scrimmage. Wisconsin doesn't do a good job of running the ball this year, and like you said, they've kind of put all their fruit into one basket about throwing the ball, which this is a very weird outfit to see from Wisconsin. So the one thing that they also don't do well is protect their quarterback. And what do we do well is get after the quarterback. So I think for our defensive perspective, control that line of scrimmage, get after the quarterback, and make them put the ball into our defense's hands. You know, force them to cause a turnover, force them to try to escape the pocket and force a ball or force a throw into a tight window, get a tip, an overthrow, and, you know, as defensive players always say, we got to get those tips and overthrows. We got to get those. So that's what I expect from our defense is to turn it up even an extra level. They played extremely well against Indiana, and this outfit is not Indiana. They don't run the ball as well. They don't throw the ball as well. They throw the ball probably the same amount, but it doesn't mean they do it as successfully. So I would like to see a couple turnovers, whether it's a strip sack and a pick or 2 picks or whatever it may be, a couple fourth down stops. But I feel like our defense and maybe a couple or maybe a 2-headed monster is something we're going to have to lean on this week to get the victory. And because obviously we're not sure at quarterback, so our other guys are going to have to step up and they're going to have to make plays, and we're going to have to rely on our defense. It's not like anything's different. We're going to have to rely on our defense like we always do to have them to play at a high level, create some turnovers, and make this one really sticky, a really sticky outfit of football as per usual.
And this could be a null point. I don't know what the contract situation looks like and everything like that, so it could just not matter. But if Iowa beats the brakes out of Wisconsin like they did last year, which is, I'm not going to sit here and go like that's my expectation or anything, given that it's at Camp Randall, it's at night and all that stuff. Is there a chance that we could be seeing Luke Fickell? This is last time at Wisconsin, or I don't know what the contract situation is, so it could just be he's obviously going to stay till the end of the season or something. But contract aside, if Luke Fickell gets blown out by Iowa, is this a chance that his last game at Wisconsin?
I mean, I hate to prey on anyone's downfall, obviously, but
yeah. Not saying anything. I'm not praying on, but I just
yeah, I would say he'd be on the shortest leash I've ever seen, because there was a lot of talk about this new age of Wisconsin football, and that they're coming in and they're going to do the air raid, and it's going to be fireworks, and there's going to be a lot of success. There's going to be a lot of points scored. And there's been little to none of that. And they obviously, injuries are tough, and you can't really assume injuries are going to happen. You can't guess when they're going to happen. They just happen, and this is one of the few games where it's 100% success, or it's 100% rate that 100% chance that you get injured. It's going to happen. So you can't really assume that those are coming, but they've had unfortunate injuries to the fact last year where they had to go back to ground and pound, even though they wanted to be an air raid offense. And obviously this year they've kind of doubled down at their air raid offense, and it still hasn't gone well. So with you not being able to beat your conference rivals and lose trophy games, and kind of this question mark of where's this air raid offense we were hearing so much about, I would say, yeah, probably that the seat would be extremely hot after this game if they weren't able to come out with a victory, or if they come out and lose in an embarrassing fashion and don't throw the ball well and can't run the ball, and Iowa puts up 20, 30 plus points to their 6 or 7. If it ends up like that, I could see that. I could absolutely see that happening.
And it's a fun one. Iowa, Wisconsin. Hate this game. My second ever Iowa game I went to was Iowa, Wisconsin. They lost in overtime. It was terrible feeling, but Iowa has a chance. I was just looking at the trophy series since the Heartland Trophy's been a thing. Wisconsin has a 1-game lead on Iowa. So Iowa has a chance to bring this back, tie it up. In the overall series, Wisconsin's got a 2-game lead. So got a chance to narrow that gap down as well. And yeah, I hate this game and love this game at the exact same time. Do you have any closing remarks before we sign off for this?
I would just say, for Iowa football, control the pace of the game, clean 4 quarters of football. With the team that's not playing well, the worst thing you could do is give them momentum at home. Turning over the ball, false starts, stupid penalties, play a clean 4 quarters of Iowa football, and we can bring that big old trophy back home.
Hell yeah. Well, I think that's all we've got for you on this episode of Bleav in Iowa. Iowa, Wisconsin takes place Saturday. We got a 6 o'clock kickoff on FS1, so make sure to tune in that game. Wherever you're watching the game, make sure to tune in that, tune in the radio, whatever. And we'll be back for a post-game show as well. So, yeah, make sure to check out all our social media accounts. You want to plug our socials real quick here, Dom?
We got Twitter, we got Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all at Bleav in Iowa.
Make sure to follow us all on there. And for Logan Blackman, he's been Dominique Dafney, and we will see you guys later.